So I think there's been a mediocre update when it comes to Onyx. Now let me explain why, even though nothing I say is financial advice. And it's actually regarding the Onyx wallet because quite recently they made this post talking about how the Onyx wallet finally has basically the capabilities to have a second login method on iOS and Android. So I guess that's pretty cool. Now, does the Onyx wallet have the best adoption? Absolutely not. But at the same time, I still think it's a mediocre update. It's not the best, but it's not the worst either. However, even besides all that, people sometimes like to tell me, well, the price is still low. Yes, I'm totally aware of that. But first of all, with XCN as of right now being approximately still around 50 times lower than 25 cents, kind of my perception is that the longer it stays at these ranges, temporarily at least, for me to dollar cost average, I'm not going to be complaining. Now, granted, could things hypothetically go lower? Maybe. But sometimes during an altcoin season, if there's a recovery, it wouldn't surprise me. However, here's the thing. Also, XCN, surprisingly enough, still has around 145,000 holders, which I find very impressive considering how it's had a pretty big pullback. But nonetheless, I still have the hypothetical thought of 25 cents on my mind when it comes to XCN, just because I think even with this major pullback, Onyx is still arguably top 5 within its own niche, which is global trade and finance. And keep in mind, Onyx is arguably quite close to, I think, doing the biggest thing it's ever done in history, ever since its existence. Now, what do I mean by this? I think arguably the biggest thing it could ever do is launch the mainnet of Goliath, which is its layer 1 blockchain. But it hasn't done that. But they're planning to do it in Q1 of this year. So the thing is, if they were able to do that, and let's say for whatever reason XCN at that point still is around 50 times lower than 25 cents, again, why would I complain if a project that I'm actually a fan of is low and I'm looking to dollar cost average, and yet at the same time, I feel like it's doing amazing things fundamentally? For me, it just makes no sense for me to just give up like that, even though I am not telling anyone to do anything. But it's like, for instance, let's say I bought a Toyota Corolla Cross hybrid, and then suddenly there was more features, but there was a discount. Would I complain? The answer is no, I'm not going to complain, even though it's separate from this, but I'm just saying. However, this is sometimes the mentality that I do have. And also, leaving for me right now almost makes kind of no sense, because imagine me leaving at a moment in time when the greed and fear index for this space overall is at extreme fear. So again, generally the sentiment, what that means, at least in my perspective, is that a lot of people don't want to enter, a lot of people are leaving, and a lot of people just don't really want to, be a part of this space, generally. So I'm going to leave at that moment and then join later on? No way, I'm not going to be doing that. I really want to be more focused when people are ignoring a project, because again, typically when a project is ignored, typically when the sentiment is not good whatsoever, what happens? The charts are low. But that right there are prime conditions for me to dollar cost average. Now, I'm never going to just go all in like that, no way. But what I do is I dollar cost average once a month. So basically once approximately every 30 days. That's it. It's a little bit of a boring, thing to do. It's kind of long. And by me doing that, the mindset would have to be potentially, right? Maybe years. We'll wait and see. I mean, it might take quite a while. It might not take that quite a while. We'll wait and see. But I'm saying, I feel like by me doing that, the approach has to be more long-term focused, right? So if I'm not focused on the long-term, I wouldn't be doing that. And also on top of that, if I didn't believe in this project, I could just easily leave. No one's telling me to do this. And even if someone told me to do it, I'm making the decision myself, right? I'm voluntarily choosing to believe in this, and I'm voluntarily choosing to dollar cost average once a month. Again, I don't have to do that, but I'm voluntarily doing that because I still like Onyx overall. Because even with this pullback, if we take a look at it, XCN currently has a market cap that is around 185 million. Like, even with that market cap right there, it's still top 5 within its own niche. So why would I want to give up? I feel like number 1 is, of course, Ripple. Number 2 is Stellar. Number 3 is XDC. Number 4 or number 5, it's a toss-up between Onyx or Zebic, right? Or should I say ZBCN? But Onyx is still arguably top 5, so I want to leave like that? No, I'm not going to be doing that. It's not like XLM's doing so amazing, XDC, and then it's only XCN not doing good. No, that's not the case. They're having a pullback, so is XCN. So I just don't want to leave. If a project is arguably top 5 in a historically robust niche, which I arguably do believe global trade and finance is within this space, I just don't want to leave because, again, historically, it's been a market that's made it through multiple times. Also, on top of that, it's a market that historically has had pretty impressive attention. But the thing is, historically, we have not really seen alternatives beyond Ripple and Stellar really have massive scale attention. We just haven't really seen that because, for instance, XDC has never become mainstream, right? Neither has Onyx, neither has Zebic. What happens if there's a hypothetical altcoin season and there is this narrative for projects beyond Ripple and Stellar that are still focused on global trade and finance? What happens at that point? Onyx is waiting right there. XDC is waiting right there. Zebic is waiting right there. XPR, Swiftcoin, it's all waiting, right? Because Stellar and Ripple, they're up there. But what happens if there's a hypothetical altcoin season and the attention starts trickling down? Again, we have not really seen that in a massive way. So what happens if we do see something like that? Would 25 cents hypothetically be so surprising to me? I guess probably not, but we'll wait and see. Because even at 25 cents, considering the current circulating supply of XCN at that point, the market cap would be around $9 billion, right? In which case, it may seem like a massive figure in and of itself, like in a vacuum, that seems very massive. But if I take a look at it, within this space, sometimes that figure doesn't really sound so outlandish if I compare it to like a Shiba Inu, which at one point was around 40 billion, or like a Dogecoin, which pretty much exceeded Shiba Inu's all-time high market cap by around 2 times, in which back in 2021 it had a market cap of over 80 billion. So the thing for me is, does around 9 billion sound so ridiculous then? For arguably a top 5 project within the space of global trade and finance, if let's say hypothetically there is an altcoin season. If the answer was no, that wouldn't surprise me in a sense where it wouldn't surprise me if that market cap didn't seem so ridiculous, again around 9 billion market cap. So personally for me, I feel like if anything, fundamentally, it seems like the best days are still yet ahead because they have not launched the mainnet of their layer 1 blockchain called Goliath, and sure, we have the testnet, but we haven't seen the mainnet. Is it gonna randomly become number 1 within this space? I mean, no. Is that gonna overtake Stellar? No way. But you know what? At least it's pretty massive in and of itself, right, for Onyx as a project. So if they could do that, if they could actually deliver on that in a sense, right? I think that's already very impressive for Onyx in and of itself. Now, Onyx is not necessarily doing too much in a sense where it's not outperforming, I think, Zebic in terms of the fundamentals, in terms of the activity, because Zebic is just doing a lot more things, even though it's the closest competitor, but Onyx has just way more holders. ZBCN has around 90,000. Again, XCN has around 145,000. So what Onyx may lack in terms of the development side of things, in terms of the activity, fundamentally speaking, when compared to Zebic, it makes up for it in the amount of holders, right? It makes up for it in terms of the historical popularity, which I think, again, Onyx does have that edge over something like Zebic. So again, Zebic kind of wins out on the diversity of the fundamentals, whereas something like XCN wins out on the historical vibes, the amount of holders. So really, in the grand scheme of things, it kind of evens it out at the end of the day. So I'm still a fan of both. I just haven't given up, but I still believe in Onyx. But I thought a mediocre update, when it comes to the Onyx wallet, yeah, I'll talk about it. There's not really much I could talk about when it comes to Onyx as of right now, because if I talk about the charts, it's not like it's doing the best, even though it could be viewed as in both ways, right? Because I actually like it for dollar cost averaging reasons, but not everyone thinks that way. But if I see an update when it comes to Onyx, I'll talk about it, even though it may be okay, mediocre, good, or not so good. I'll talk about it when it comes to Onyx because I'm still a fan. I haven't given up, and I'm still dollar cost averaging once a month, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But again, a mediocre update, I'll take that for now because Onyx is just not having the best sentiment, but at least I saw that, so I do still like it. However, I want to say thank you for watching. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll see y'all on the next one. I'll be sure to make more updated videos when it comes to Onyx. So I'm out. Peace. Bye.